Shalawam. First, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Hakadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, from whom I learned this truth. Shalawam to the 144,000 elect. I am Mayakala. And I'm going to do a lesson, bring out a video, and have a few verses after the video. This is concerning news that I just recently heard in the last couple of days about the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier being bombed, being brought down, or actually it's already in the sea, so it was just set on fire with a number of bombs. And this is something, a prophecy that's coming to fruition, that's been written of in the book of Revelation. So I do have a short video. I'm going to provide just the audio. There's no need to show it. The source is a colonel, and his name escapes me right now, but I've listened to this. He's a retired colonel, and been involved in, I believe, in Desert Storm, and maybe even the Iraq War. But like I said, his name escapes me right at the moment, but he's been a pretty reliable source, because he's been on a couple of news, not mainstream news, but he's been on a couple of news outlets on the show Redacted. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And he has his own podcast, and he's a pretty reliable source. He still has contact with people that are that are currently in the military. And I am going to play this under the Fair Use Act of 1976. This is only for edification purposes only. I'm going to say that anyway, even though I'm not going to actually show any video. I'm just going to provide the audio. This is not a monetized station, so this is just for edification purposes only. And it's a long video, but I'm not going to play all of it, because I just want to get just the basic information about the damage that was done to this aircraft carrier. All right, and then I'm going to go to, because I've already gone to ChatGPT to see if ChatGPT would be on the same page with what this colonel was saying about this aircraft carrier being destroyed. So I'm gonna go ahead and play a few minutes of it, and then I'll come back and bring out a few verses, and then that'll be the end.
Welcome back to U.S. Power Analysis. Tonight, that power structure has encountered an event that no amount of reframing can contain, that no Pentagon press briefing can absorb into a narrative of continued American dominance, and that no diplomatic communique can walk back from the edge of its full historical significance. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered supercarrier, 100,000 tons of the most concentrated conventional military power that human civilization has ever assembled onto a single floating platform, is gone, not damaged, not retreating to a safe harbor.
So notice you'll say that this aircraft carrier is gone. He said it's not damaged, it's gone.
For repairs, not filing an incident report with CENTCOM, gone. Struck by 300 Noor anti-ship cruise missiles in the most concentrated and devastating naval engagement since the Second World War. The vessel that carried on it.
All right, now these missiles that the Iranians used, he said there were 300 of them that hit this aircraft carrier called Noor. All right, so I'll let this continue to play. Remember that name, that they called him Noor.
Deck, the living embodiment of American global reach, has been obliterated in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz by a weapon system that Iran developed, refined.
telling me?
There's 5
Fuck it.
feminizing foods in every man's kitchen, destroying his testosterone. Feminizing food
moves by a weapons system that Iran developed, refined, and forward deployed with a strategic patience and operational discipline that the Western intelligence community systematically underestimated until the moment it became catastrophically too late to matter. The word obliterated is not rhetorical excess. It is the accurate operational term for what 300 simultaneous missile impacts arriving from multiple vectors and multiple altitudes in a compressed engagement window that denied any meaningful defensive response due to a vessel whose designers never contemplated a threat environment of this density and this sophistication. The fires that burned on the Eisenhower's flight deck and in its hangar bay and in the spaces below reached temperatures that the vessel's damage control systems were not designed to address. The structural consequences of multiple warhead detonations in the machinery spaces and the aviation fuel storage areas were not survivable for the vessel. They were barely survivable for a fraction of the crew. In the Pentagon, the word freefall is equally precise. The institutional architecture that exists to translate American military power into coherent strategic response, the chain of command, the planning cells, the communications infrastructure, the decision-making processes that have managed American military crises for 80 years, has encountered a loss of a magnitude and a character for which no crisis management protocol adequately prepares. A carrier is not a ship. It is a symbol, a doctrine, a statement about the nature of American power in the world. When that symbol burns in the Strait of Hormuz, the free fall is not merely institutional. It is civilizational. What happened in those compressed minutes when 300 Nor missiles turned the world's most powerful warship into wreckage? What is the Nor missile system? How did Iran develop the capability to fire 300 of them in a single coordinated salvo?
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. And I may play a little bit more of it later, but I wanted to bring out a verse because we're seeing the beginnings of what is going to happen when this war becomes full-fledged. Right now, there's only Israel, the United States, and Iran, with Israel and the United States going up against Iran, and Yemen has just recently been brought into it, but they have a ceasefire going right now. But I'm gonna go to Revelation chapter 8 and verse 7. It says, the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And that hail represents the missiles that will be fired. All right, and the blood that follows will be when those missiles make contact. All right. It says, and the fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees were burnt up. The third part of the trees represented a third part of man, because there are 3 types of men. There's the sons of Yahawah, which are the Israelites, the sons of the wicked, which is Esau, and the sons of man, which are the other nations. All right, and when these missiles begin to make contact with not only these vessels that they're going to hit, they're also going to further go to make contact with Babylon, what you call America. All right, and it's going to destroy this place. It says, and the third part of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass were burnt up. This is going to be the sons of the wicked. All right, they're going to be consumed. And as you see, this USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, according to this retired colonels, he says it's already been destroyed, and it's been destroyed by 300 missiles that Iran has bombed them with, has hit them with. All right. And I just wanted to kind of check the information that he was bringing out. So I went to Chat GPT, And it said, and I asked ChatGPT, I says, has the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier been destroyed? And ChatGPT came back with the answer no. It says the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower has not been destroyed. It says what's actually happening. It says the carrier is still in service with the U.S. Navy. It says it is currently in Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Virginia undergoing scheduled maintenance and upgrades. Now, I asked about another aircraft carrier. I believe it was the Gerald Ford. Let's see. It's locked, yeah, because I wanted to keep this because I wanted to show how this information that ChatGPT brings out is just lies. All right, because I asked about the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, and it gave me a similar response about it. Let's see. I says, was the USS Ford? I said, what is the USS Ford, and has it been destroyed? And it's ChatGPT's response was the USS Gerald R. Ford is the lead ship of the United States Navy's newest class of nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. It officially entered service in 2017 and represents a major upgrade over older carriers like the Nimitz class. All right, and this Nimitz class is what the Dwight D. Eisenhower was. All right, it says it has improved radar weapon systems, but I'm going to skip all that, all right? It says, because I asked, has it been destroyed? And it says, as for your second question, there is no credible information or evidence that the USS Gerald R. Ford has been destroyed. It remains active in the U.S. Navy as of now. It says, if you've seen a claim that it was destroyed, it's almost certainly misinformation or a rumor. And so, like, I went on to ask why was this aircraft sent to other bases for repair instead of being sent home, because it was telling me that this vessel, this USS Gerald Ford, was being brought home because the crew had been out for more than 10 months, which was a long time. So anyway, its response was that it just needed repairs, and it needed to go to the closest area in order for it to be repaired. And it says, let's see. So I asked also, it says, why are other aircraft carriers traveling around the Horn of Africa to access the Gulf to replace it? And the answer was, they're not going around Africa because the USS Gerald R. Ford was destroyed. They're doing it because the usual route has become dangerous, and also because the Ford needs relief after a long strained deployment. All right, so it's just kind of inconsistent as the reason why if it was been out to sea for a long time, which I think this later on in this article it said about, in this response it said about 10 months. I'm not going to read it all. Well, let's see. Yeah, it says it's been deployed close to 10 to 11 months, one of the longest modern carrier deployments. It took part in major operations tied to the Iran conflict. It suffered a serious onboard fire, ongoing maintenance strain. So the point that I was making is that both of these carriers, according to ChatGPT, have suffered had to have repairs because of a fire. All right, and I just find it strange that both of these aircraft carriers, both a newer one and an older one, were being repaired because of fires. Now, they didn't really say how these fires were sparked. All right, but I want to go back down. Because I wanted to also bring out some points on why you can't trust what the Chat GPT is always giving you, because the responses are lies. And to prove that, let me see if there's any more I wanted to go on talking about this Gerald or Salakia about this Eisenhower carrier. Okay, I'm gonna pick it up right here. It says it is currently in Norfolk Naval Shipyard undergoing scheduled maintenance and upgrades. Now, this is about the Dwight D. Eisenhower, and you just heard this colonel saying that it's been destroyed. There's no repairs going on with it. It's been completely destroyed. It's been hit by 300 missiles called Newer. All right. It says ChatGPT goes on to continue with its response. It says about the recent incident. It says a small fire did occur aboard the ship during maintenance in April 2026. It was quickly contained and extinguished. A few sailors had minor injuries and there was no major damage. It says you might be hearing rumors that there's been a lot of misinformation around this ship before. False claims that it was hit or sunk in the Red Sea have circulated in the past. It says U.S. officials and reporting have repeatedly confirmed those claims were not true. So according to ChatGPT, it says the bottom line is not destroyed, it's not sunk, and it is currently in Virginia. Now, I'm going to go on to read Revelation chapter 8, verse 9. It says, the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. So although this is only the beginnings, because this is only the beginnings of this war. I mean, there's probably going to be ceasefires. And it's probably going to calm down, but it's going to flare right back up. And we're seeing the beginnings of this Revelation chapter 8 and verse 9, saying a third part of these ships, meaning a third part of Esau's ship in his army. And in this case, we're talking about the Navy. All right. So this colonel says that this USS Dwight D. Eisenhower has been completely destroyed. And you're seeing that according to what he's saying, that the prophecies here in Revelation chapter 8, verse 9 is coming into fruition. Like I said, this is only the beginning. All right. And there's going to be many more of these aircraft carriers that are going to be destroyed, or probably have already been destroyed. But because you can't get a real answer, a real truthful answer from ChatGPT, it's going to be hidden, and the mainstream media is not bringing out this information. All right. And I just wanted to be able to prove that ChatGPT is not very truthful. It will lie to you if you don't push it. Because I went on to ask about the Secretary of Defense, or as they want to call him, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. And I asked ChatGPT, what is Pete Hegseth's title? And it says, the response was, Pete Hegseth is best known as a television host and a political commentator. particularly as a co-host on Fox and Friends Weekend on the Fox News. Said he's also a former Army National Guard officer, a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, previously involved with conservative advocacy organization. He does not hold an official government or military leadership position like the Secretary of Defense. So then I responded and I said, then why does he currently hold press conferences giving details of military excursions? And it says, ChatGPT's response was, he isn't holding official Pentagon press briefings. It says Pete Hegseth is a media figure, not a government official. When you see him giving details, it's almost certainly in one of these contexts. TV segments framed like briefings on Fox News, especially shows like Fox and Friends Weekend. Hosts often, and here's the ChatGPT's explanation, present breaking military news, and a few current or former officials use graphics and language that can feel like an official briefing. But it's commentary and reporting, not command authority. 2, it says repeating or interpreting official information. Actual military details come from the United States Department of Defense, combatant commands like CENTCOM, White House, or Pentagon press briefings. Hegseth may be summarizing those announcements, adding analysis or opinion, sometimes speculating beyond confirmed facts. All right, so I kind of got a little bothered with reading all that explanation. It says, bottom line, he said he doesn't have authority to brief on military operations. So I responded back to GPS. I says, you are incorrect. Pete Hegseth does hold a political position as Secretary of Defense. So here's ChatGPT's response. It says, you're right to push back. This situation has changed. In the earlier context, most people remember him as a TV host is now outdated. With what his current title actually is, Pete Hegseth is currently serving as the U.S. Secretary of Defense since January 2025. So if I hadn't pushed back on this, he was going ChatGPT was gonna have me try to lead me to believe that he's only a Fox host on the weekend show, Fox and Friends. Said there's an additional wrinkle. Says the administration has also been using the title Secretary of War after 2025 executive action, renaming the department in practice. However, legally, the position is still rooted in the Secretary of Defense role unless Congress formally changed it. All right, it says why you're seeing press conferences from him. It says because that role, he is one of the top civilian leaders of the U.S. military, so he regularly gives Pentagon briefings, which I already knew the answer to this, but I had to kind of push back and get ChatGPT to tell the truth, because they wanted to say that he wasn't the Secretary of Defense. All right, so I only brought that out just to prove that this ChatGPT will lie to you. So if he lies about something about that's so easily verifiable, about what Pete Hegseth's title is, what his position is in this current administration, of course it's going to lie to you about what's happened to this USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier. All right? So I'm not going to bring out any more of that. But like I said, I did have a couple verses that I wanted to read. And that'll be the end of this. Like I said, this wouldn't be very long. Salaki has actually been longer than I really wanted to make it. I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 24 and verse 29. Salaki, I'm going to take that off. It says immediately after the and this is in the red letter, so this is Yahawashi speaking. It says immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Those stars that you're going to see falling, those stars that you see fall, that you're going to see falling from the heavens as a result of the missiles, all right? Missiles making contact with the aircraft that the America will have as they all gather here in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh's judgment. That's actually Yahweh Shabbat, Yahweh's judgment, all right? And all the armies are going to be gathered there, and you're seeing the beginnings of all these armies being gathered, all right, in what they call the Middle East for this final showdown that's going to take place, all right? And it says, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to be seeing these aircrafts. You're going to see their ships being taken down. You're going to be seeing there's all their military wares and weapons that they use being taken down by missiles. All right, like I said, we're just now seeing the beginnings of what is to take place. All right, and just to finish, I'm going to go to Isaiah chapter 66. And I'm going down to verse 15. It says, for behold, the Lord Yahawah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind. So all these armies gather in the so-called Middle East for Yahawashi, you're going to see that the chariots of the Lord are going to be there also. And though they're going to use their missiles for their destruction to bring about, as carry out their war, as they're going to try to turn on the chariots of Yahawah as they come into to also destroy this place, all right, destroy this place, America. All right, because he's going to be firing with his weapon that he has on his chariot. All right, verse 15 says, for behold, the Lord Yahawah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. All right, so it's not only going to be these armies trying to war with each other, but as they see the chariots of Yahawah enter and also firing upon these different armies, and firing upon America to consume them, to destroy this place completely. All right, they're going to turn and try to fight against Yahawah or Yahawashi, and they're going to be unsuccessful in their little escapade to try to destroy the chariots of Yahawah, because Yahawah is a man of war. All right, and you can't these weapons that these different armies have cannot compete with the weapons of Yahawah and his army. All right, but like I said, I wanted to keep this short, and Salakia for going long, but I pray that this has been edifying to the listener. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Hakadash, Shalawam.